this is Spanner from the Spanner and Riggs Show. We're here, me and Riggs here, episode 11, and we went a little different this time. All you Nodak Speedway guys out there, we had young Jacob Smith, 17-year-old, who's entering the Arco West NASCAR circuit this fall on, and we had Kenny Shepard, owner of the Madera Speedway, on today. Great interview, very informative. Here we go. Hey, we got Jacob Smith here, one of race car's youngest phenoms. He races out at the Madera Speedway, and he will be moving on to the NASCAR Arco West. Is that right, Jacob?
Yeah, the NASCAR Arco West.
NASCAR Arco West this October, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, October 14th.
So tell us, how old were you when you started driving?
Well, when I first started, I was 6 years old. My dad and I were from Eagle, Idaho. We were over at our roadster show that we have every year, and the local go-kart club, they had a booth set up with a few go-karts, and I was climbing in and out of them, and that's kind of where we got to start. Next thing you know, we went out to the racetrack, and we ended up plugging into Larry Robb and Stingray Robb, getting my first go-kart. And from there, we just kind of started putting in a lot of laps practicing. After school, when I was in kindergarten, we'd go to the racetrack after school and just put in a bunch of laps, and that's kind of where it all started.
Now tell us a little bit about, for the racing game has kind of changed a little bit. I had a guy a friend of mine that worked with Sebastian Vettel in F1, and, back in the day, guys would just jump in cars and go. It seems like now there's just a lot more preparation for racers at all levels, preparation both mentally and physically. So do you do any of that stuff? Do you have like a kind of routine that prepares yourself, or how do you prepare for your races?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's been I go to the gym every week, and I've got a good little regiment there. And mainly my workouts are all focused around, muscles that I'll use when I'm in the race car, and building that endurance. When we do those 100-lap races, and down in Madera, it gets about 105, 106 degrees during the summer. So our August and July races are super hot. It's about 140 degrees inside the cockpit of the car. So in order to go that long distance for an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time, it takes a lot of cardio and a lot of muscular endurance versus really broad strength. So there's a lot of physical preparation to it, but also the mental side of it of, staying focused on hitting your marks and, doing as you practiced. There's a lot that goes on. If you get a little bump from a car behind, you're gonna try to stay calm and collected versus letting that get to your head and forcing you to start making errors. So there's a lot of that. We fly down to the races, so I get a good little, couple hour and a half, 2 hours on the airplane to just clear my mind and kind of focus on, okay, this is what I'm going to do this weekend. So yeah.
Tell us about the jump from kart racing to car racing, and how did that happen?
Yeah, so that happened, well, it's 3 years ago now, so 2020. At this point, I raced in the regional go-karting series, the Northwest Gold Cup, and raced all up and down the West Coast for about 8 years competitively. And I won 6 regional championships, 2 national championships, and 6 local championships, along with a Sid White Memorial Award, and lots of different Rookie of the Year sort of things. So when 2020 came around, I was turning 15, and that was the year of, hey, if I want to, I knew I wanted to take racing to the next level, and I had my goals set on becoming a NASCAR driver. We got in touch with a guy named John Newhouse out of Twin Falls, Idaho. His daughter, Hannah Newhouse, grew up racing go-karts, went through the same ranks that I'm going through right now in the Pro Late models to the Arco West series. And now she's a pit reporter. So we plugged into John Newhouse and raced a Northwest Tour truck here locally at Meridian Speedway, a little quarter-mile asphalt track. And then we raced down in Twin Falls, which was a 3/8 paved track. So once I got into that, going from a go-kart that weighs 315, 320 pounds to a 3,000-pound car that has full suspension. You're throwing a lot of weight around, and you're doing 85 miles an hour. It was a big jump. I think that karting definitely allowed for me to have a great foundation, to where when I got into that, I was able to adapt to it fairly quickly. So yeah, the jump from karting to cars is it's different, that's for sure.
You know, I married into a racing family, the Earnhardt family. My in-laws are big Junior fans, and they of course have all the flags and everything like that. But that's kind of how I got to learn how about racing and the intricacies that go on with it. But did you do you have a favorite racer or an idol that you try to emulate? I'm sure in your family that you probably watch a lot of the big NASCAR races. But do you have a personal favorite that you pull for all the time, or are you just always so focused on your own racing?
Well, it's funny that you asked me. We usually, the TV in our house is usually never on except for Sundays when the Cup race is on. So um, that's I don't really have a number one driver. I mean, there's a lot of them that I like, a lot of them that come from a similar background to me in go-karting. Um, but for me, I'm a big Kyle Larson fan. I know that's kind of a trend right now, but
Yeah.
coming from where he started in the dirt, and having that talent to be fast in anything he drives is something that I admire. So he's definitely probably my favorite right now. But yeah.
So tell us, you move up and you're the rookie and whatnot. What do they treat you like a rookie, or because you're a kid, they treat you with white gloves? Do they rub you? Tell us some of the dirty techniques. The vets. What do they do to kind of muscle the rookies around, or and do you do that to other inexperienced drivers? Tell us a little bit what it's like on the track when someone's trying to bully somebody.
Yeah, no, it kind of goes back to that mental state. If you're getting kind of bullied around the racetrack and you're letting it get to your head, you start making mistakes. That's when you can really start to have an accident and spin out and cause a caution. But no, I mean, moving up from the junior late models at Madera Speedway last year into the pro late models this year, I went from that 11 to 16 age range to 16 to big adults, right? So there's a lot of experience in the class as well. So me coming in, being my first year in the pro late models, they look at me as the rookie, and not having as much experience as they do. You have to earn their respect on the racetrack, as well as off of it. So it takes it's one of those things that just takes time. I mean, I've always tried to focus on being a clean racer and making opportunities, without having to push somebody around the racetrack. So building respect with the more experienced drivers is absolutely the part of it. So yeah, I mean, for me, I don't like to push people around the racetrack because that's not how I want to be raced. So I'm gonna race clean and as fast as I can, and we're gonna race as hard. We're gonna race each other as hard as we can, but let's keep it clean. So that's how I like to think about it.
Now take us into what it's like to actually stop into the big cars and the speed that those vehicles are capable of. I mean, I've never been in one. I know my in-laws have did a ride along, and I mean it's fast. And even when you watch like the big dogs and NASCAR, they are mentally tough, no doubt about it. But they do admit they're humans, right? So there is an element of somewhat fear that might be my last race and those type of things. Do you ever have any of that fear, or is that just something that comes with being a racer, that you just focus on what you're doing, and how do you stay focused? Because obviously if there's a wreck in front of you and you have to adjust to go around or whatever, that poses some challenges too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it definitely is a little difficult. For me, once we get down to the race, I don't worry about my schoolwork. I don't worry about what my friends are doing. None of that. It's like I'm there. We're racing, and it's just a different mindset when I'm at the racetrack. Of we have a goal. As far as the wrecks and getting hurt, I don't have an ounce of fear in my mind about that. That's I've seen the way the cars were built. I mean, all the safety gear we wear, all the fire extinguishers that are ran through the car, they're built to keep you safe. So as far as running into, hitting the wall or running into another car, being tied down with the seatbelt so tight, the impact's pretty strong. It might not look like it, but it can rattle your brain a little bit, but it goes back to that. It really goes back to the mental, strength and staying focused and not letting that rattle your cage too much. So yeah, I mean, other than that, I think it's super safe.
So what's the fastest you've gotten in a race with other cars? Not training, not trying to get pole position, on a pre-track run or pre-race run. In a race, other cars on there. What's the highest miles per hour you've gotten to?
So down in Madera, it's a 3rd mile track. It's got progressive banking, so the banking of the track continues the higher you go up the racetrack. So it allows for a lot of 2-lane racing. Everyone in the class, we all run the same motor. So we're all got about 350, 360 horsepower. And right at the end of the straightaway, we're all doing about 80, 81 miles an hour. So when there's 26 cars on the racetrack and you're all going into the corner doing 80 miles an hour side by side, it's pretty exciting. So that's about as quick as we'll get going there. But yeah.
So explain to us a little bit. I mean, I know in the dirt track world and some of the the lower levels, it's a passion, but sometimes a hobby. I mean, it's tough to make ends meet. How do you tell us a little bit about behind the scenes? How does that work as you move up? Is it something where you personally, or your dad, or your family, or you hire somebody to raise sponsors, or is it just strictly you just make your earnings? Explain how that dynamic works with racing as you're progressing up the ladder.
Yeah, so back when I was about 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, my dad started me on the building relationships with people and on the partnership side, the business side of racing. I use the 80-20 rule when I talk about racing. It's 80% business and 20% racing. And there's a lot of business that goes on behind the scenes, to make sure we have the stickers on the car and the support to get to the racetrack and all that. So I'm a first generation racer in my family. So my dad, he raced for 1 year on some dirt go-karts back when he was about 12 years old. So he doesn't have the experience of doing it for 25, 30 years. So moving up the ranks, building relationships with people and really networking is the name of the game. We have been working. My dad helps me behind the scenes, but as a kind of the front work of stuff, I do all my own business meetings. I send all my own emails, set up business meetings and stuff like that. I was in Seattle this last month for a week to go up there for a business meeting. So there's lots of that, and it just continues the higher up you go. As the cost of racing increases, which it is a very costly sport, it really does take an army to make it happen. And so I'm very grateful for all my partners that I have, and I built a very good. They started as business relationships, and now they've turned into very good friendships. So it's all about relationships and who you know, and so every day, I'm working on building relationships and setting meetings and making sure that the bases are covered. So
tell me, is it the car or the driver? Which matters more?
Well, my dad and I always said racing, when you're at the racetrack, it's a 3-legged stool. You got the car set up, the driver, and your engine. So in this class, the engine's eliminated from the stool. Everyone's got the same stuff. So it really comes down to the setup and the driver. And if you don't have one of those 3 things, then the stool falls over. So it's a combination of all of it. You all got to be working together between myself as the driver and my crew chief, Charlie Wilson, along with my teammates. We all work together on say, hey, this worked for me, this worked for you. Let's put our brains together and come up with something that'll work for all of us. So it really is a 3-legged stool.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your team. I mean, do they are they working on that car like constantly every day? I mean, how do they get it prepared for the way you like it? I mean, in terms of obviously you prepare sometimes if you have the ability to practice and all that stuff, but I'm sure, you know, a lot of people just see races and drivers, but there's a lot of preparation, especially getting that car ready to what you want it to be for races to make sure that you're successful.
Yeah, there is a lot of work that goes on in the shop. Unfortunately, since we're up in Idaho and the car's down in California, I don't get to partake in much of that. But there's a lot. I mean, we got Rob and Tommy and Denny and Charlie. Those are the main crew guys that are at the shop every day. Whether it's cleaning it off to make sure it looks pretty or repairing it from the last race, we're always, you know, trying to go forward. And there is a lot of preparation that goes into it. So it's one of those things that once the car gets done with the race, it goes back to the shop, and they really go through every nut and bolt, make sure, you know, we're not scraping the bottom of the oil pan. There's no leaks anywhere. We want to make sure that everything's straight and there's no, you know, bent spindles, nothing like that. So there's a lot of that goes into it. So it takes a good group of guys to make sure that it gets to the racetrack in one piece. So, you know, like you mentioned, there is so much behind the scenes that most people just see the racing, but there's weeks and weeks of preparation that goes into it.
Yeah, we're here with Jacob Smith, and Kenny Shepard, the owner of the Madera Speedway, has joined us. And Kenny, you know, we're going to start with you talking a little bit about Jacob, and then you know, we're going to ask some questions about your Speedway and about you a little bit afterward, if you're okay with that.
Okay.
So,
yeah, for sure.
You know, Jacob's telling he lives in Idaho and he flies in for these races, and you know, I had a phone conversation with him. It says you're kind of collecting a lot of the good young drivers out there right now. Tell us where Jacob's at and how well he's doing.
I think Jacob's doing very well. Just about won our junior late model championship last year. Junior late models began in 2016 on MAVTV. We've been on MAVTV with our program since 2015. The pilot series was shot in 2013. I came up with a concept of the junior late model series in 2006. I'm real good friends with Kurt and Kyle Busch, and watching Kyle Busch come up as well as other youngsters, I just felt like there was a need for a series that was very high profile for the elite young kids from the United States to get a jump on their careers and train the best of the best to be the future stars. So it's been a very popular program. We've had kids from England, Canada, Mexico, all over the United States. It's been absolutely amazing what we've been able to do. And Jacobs was right there in the line of the other stars that have gone up ahead of him from the junior series, like Cole Custer, Haley Deegan, Jesse Love, Joey East, to name a few. I could go on and on, Ryan Vargas. A lot of the kids are on their way up to the top of the sport right now. So I think Jacobs on a good trajectory to follow in line. Great young man, really, really good driver, very good at representing himself and a good representative of the sport. So we're very excited. He's a graduate of our juniors, now in the pros this year, as he's probably told you, and we're very excited for what his potential is down the road.
Kenny, tell us a little bit about your track. We had a good chat with Jacob a little bit, trying to get some, you know, how the parameters work and a few of those type of things. But, you know, we're here up in the frozen tundra of North Dakota, where our racing season is certainly a lot shorter. But I'm assuming, you know, how do you guys set your schedule? I mean, you know, designing for specific race nights. Obviously, your season, you probably get to go a lot longer with your better weather. But how do you manage your track in terms of getting the different levels, different, you know, style of racing and stuff like that, and to fit it on your track within a schedule that's not going to, you know, over and inundate fans, but yet give them a good experience?
Yeah, I'm actually fairly familiar with your territory. I grew up in Iowa and have family all over Minnesota. So my dad was military. That's how we ended up out here. So I'm used to those condensed snowy seasons. So out here, we're able to start our race season pretty much March 1st, end of February even, and we can go clear into November. The Madera Speedway is pretty famous for this Fresno territory, Central California, really famous for being a portal to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So from the Vukovich family, the Gearhart family, from the 50s and into the 60s, just the Madera Speedway in particular was really famous as it came into its current location, 1971, where we're at right now. Prior to that, right after World War II, it was right across the street. It was half-mile dirt track. Now it's a 1/3 mile paved track. So the track was always really famous for, in that territory, the Fresno territory, for this IndyCar connection. What myself, coming up in the Featherlight Southwest Tour, Winston West, it's now ARCA, growing up around, racing with Kevin Harvick and Ron Hornaday and Greg Biffle and Kurt and Kyle Busch, all those guys. There was a lot of movement from the late model program up into the tours out here. And what I did was continued on. 2006, I still wasn't finished with my racing. I ended up as one of 4 guys to revive the infamous Altamont Speedway. It's probably more famous for the Rolling Stones than it is racing. And then in 2006, going into 2007, we had, I see you smiling there. I'm actually Dale Jr. and a few other people are there. He's working on a documentary, his kind of Lost Tracks program. So we're doing some stuff at Altamont. That's a whole other story.
That's cool.
So 2007, the Madera Speedway was to close. We picked it up, started running, and just kind of rebuilt it. And I envisioned this program to basically build this foundation that a lot of us got to experience through the 90s. And but yet in more of a modern touch to provide kids like Jacob with an opportunity to go up in the sport and connect to the highest levels. And coming back from Sonoma Raceway today, we tie the Madera Speedway with a lot of friends in NASCAR. So we're setting up a field trip. We're actually producing. I own in addition to the Speedway and a couple of other companies, I started the production company that's now what televises our program on MAVTV. So we also do the West Coast Motorsports Hall of Fame. We film that for MAVTV. Ralph Sheen's the host and work on some fairly high profile projects. So just coming back from that organization, what we're working on right now, it will be hosted at Sonoma, the new Turn 11 complex there during Cup weekend, second weekend in June. And we'll take 5 of our top young prospects up there and connect them with Cup owners and team owners and sponsors. And they just get full access to the place, and we try and connect them to the sport as best we can. So I'm really excited about what we've done with the Madera Speedway. I've been there 16 years. This vision that I had to create this televised series, it kind of ties everything from my uncle's racing in the Midwest to my racing, and ties a lot of things that I learned together from marketing and television, and provide a heck of a platform for these kids to come up in.
Hey, Jacob, why don't you tell us, what Kenny's done for you and for some young drivers and bringing them together and maybe, navigating your way through the business and the skill portion and, and the access to, to this industry.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kenny's a huge advocate for young drivers, especially in, coming up through the sport. So the program that he's built at Madera is pretty phenomenal. And it's very unique from any other program in the nation, in the world for that. So it's really awesome to be racing with the best competition, that are older than me, the same age as me. It's a lot of fun. So I know Kenny's touched a lot of people, and I'm grateful that he's helped me, through some struggles. But no, he's got a huge helping hand, and he wants to see all the drivers succeed. And so it's really quite cool what he does in Madera.
Question kind of for both of you, and Ken, you kind of touched on it a little bit about on the production side, which is awesome. Is that kind of built out of necessity, or is that just, enhancing the fan experience? Because, today's day and age, kids are always on their phones and everybody's on social media and those type of things. And so my question to you, Kenny, and then second part is, to you, Jacob, is that an absolute necessity in terms of how you do the overall production of your races? It catches another set of eyes, and I'm sure it probably, in some respects can hurt sometimes at the gates, as both and I are coaches, and we've noticed that in the last few years. And then the second part was for you, Jacob, is are you able to use that footage to sell your sponsors? Now you've got, if you can, catch clips of yourself and being able to show, your sponsors, that's a huge bonus. Instead of just showing a pamphlet and saying, you can get a spot on my car or whatever, here's where I am, and those type of things.
Yeah, so very, very good questions. The first element for me is a necessity, was a necessity. It was pretty innovative what we did with our MAVTV production, what we do with our live streams, but it really came from 2006. I was sitting up at Altamont, had a friend of mine that's a Cup driver, happened to be visiting that weekend. And we were talking about Kyle Busch had just come up, coming up through the trucks, and he was a little too young. They let him race a little bit and didn't. And I had identified that, there was so much demand on these young drivers. We had to do it much faster than we did, in my era, friends with Ernie Irvin, heck, you could be 30 years old and still become a Cup star. Now that was all changing. So originally the program was designed out of necessity to actually be able to move forward with the program with the juniors much earlier. As far as the TV show, once we got to the pilot 2013, 2015, it was just a matter of build a platform where the best of the best could come together. The top drivers could come together, the top young talent. One of the misconceptions, by the way, is people think we're looking for 100 kids. We're not. We look for the top 16 kids, and we really have to scour the entire country. And we want to put those top 15 stars together on a stage that's on national TV with a lot of pressure, cameras. It's basically a miniature cup program, and try and filter out who's the best of the best. Now, what happened, kind of to tie into your question, the necessity and what it does with a track, was the byproduct of all of that was by 2017, we had something so much bigger than any local racetrack. When you've got a reach of 250, 300,000 fans, you're on a national TV show. We've got other media contracts that are actually pushing some of our content overseas. We have other after-school programs. We're tied into different media, and all of a sudden this thing exploded, and we built a really, really big stage for our drivers to get publicity from. So that was really a byproduct. And then with the live streams with COVID, we did something really innovative. We did free live streams during COVID and grew a huge audience on that side as well. So I would say the necessity, the reach with the kids, Absolutely. It was just a byproduct. Wasn't an accident. Certainly there was a big marketing component we adjusted to, but originally it was just to provide the best stage for the best young talent to go head to head live on television that ended up being tape delay on television.
Yeah, no, I think, on kind of backing up to what Kenny said about the live streams, I know all of my partners, unfortunately, we haven't had the first few races live streamed, but they've been all asking me, hey, where can I watch the race? Where can I watch this? And as of last year, now the MAVTV races are almost done with the season coming out of MAVTV. It's pretty awesome to take that fully produced race and show it to my partners, or take little snippets of it and kind of put together a little montage. It's something that's more tangible that you can see versus just a piece of paper that you're looking at, and it's something tangible. So from the marketing side of things, it's a huge bonus to the racing part of it. So it helps a lot with the business side, along with building the excitement for it.
That's pretty cool. And it's probably, for you who spends, it looks like you're kind of advanced in the business side for a kid your age. That's probably a bigger boost to you than for most, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I love the business side of things, and so that's a huge help to it.
So Kenny, I'm not a big race guy. I'm pretty, I don't know a whole lot about it. My dad absolutely is just dialed into all of it. He loves all of those speed channels and whatnot. I got a question for you, and this is, I told people here locally that you were coming on, and so this is the number one question that they had for you. Tell us, okay, the difference of the crate engine, versus the open engine, and what has the crate engine done to the open engine builders, in the United States? And am I posing that question correctly?
Yeah, spot on. Actually, very well. It was, for me personally, I'm not a crate engine guy, believe it or not. But being the innovator of this pro late model, in addition to doing the junior late model class, prior to that, we started this pro late model class in the mid to late 2000s, 2006, 7, 8, 9. And it was really, the theory was trying to find a platform rules wise where the most talented drivers would come to the front, where our sport has kind of migrated towards money first, talent second. So being a young kid, come from Iowa corn farmers. My dad was in the military, great mechanic, but we were always with my racing. It was always a struggle finding the capital to deal with the very wealthy teams. In racing, it's a bit different. Here's a good way of putting it. Every time we go out and throw that baseball to your dad to play catch, to kind of tune up your baseball skills, it costs $1,000. So it costs a lot of money to throw that baseball every time you go racing. It's a very, very expensive sport. So what I wanted to do was come up with a format that would level the playing field, and we could see the talent come forward. Like in Jacob's case, Jacob's amazing. He sells, I don't know if you guys talked about this already or not, but he's one of the youngsters. We do a lot of marketing coaching, a lot of sponsorship coaching, and Jacob sells pretty much all of the funding they have for his race program. He's selling to sponsors and marketing partners. So, and that's what we wanted, was the most talented, not just to have this barrier financially. So to the 602 crate engine, 604, there's many flavors of the crate engine. We use the 602 Chevrolet. I saw that as it was very important for two reasons to fuse the crate engine versus the open engine. Again, I'm an open engine guy. We hot rodder, dad's hot rodder. We built, anything from scratch. But two things: we needed a very cost-effective combination. So when I started with the 602 Chevrolet crate engine, it was about $3,100, I think, $3,000 delivered. It's a little bit more than that now, but for a race engine that would go 100 races, crazy cheap. And we had the open engine combination. So the tours that Kevin Harvick came from, the NASCAR Featherlight Southwest Tour, was really famous out here for a long time. That's where Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick, Ron Hornaday, all those big names came from. We ran these other types of engines, very expensive engines. So you had a $50,000 engine. Every 3 races, it was about a $10,000 rebuild. So it just, it set parameters for those that had it and did not. We had, obviously 5, 6, 7 engines and a lot of, extra cars and stuff. So what I came up with was allowing that big expensive engine to compete, but I came up with combination A and B. Combination A was 602 Chevrolet crate. Combination B had a little more overall weight, a little less left side weight, so it was a little harder on the right side tires. And that was that big open engine that we competed with. So, and then what we did that was probably, go ahead.
Well, Riggs here, he was a hockey coach, I was a soccer coach, but we had talked at great length about the Gretzky era, when it was like 7 out of 8 Canadians in the NHL, and it just wasn't as competitive as it is now. Do you see a future of racing where you hit this next generation where the skill level, at NASCAR or wherever just explodes? Or do you think that it's going to be the same as it was?
No, it'll explode. And something I think that one of the bigger legacies of what we have done is we kind of hit the reset button with rules and procedures, took the marketing to the next level. And I think what we've been able to do is reset the stage where 10 years from now, you'll see so much young talent at the cup level. It'll be unbelievable what actually takes place. And we've got a lot of that talent going uphill right now. So I think what we'll have, let me get rid of that call. Oh, okay, back there, sorry about that. So what we'll have is, there'll be so much talent up above that comes from this type of program, and not just from our racetrack. What happened was we came up with this rule set 2006 to 2009, that window. We came up with the TV concept. 2012, we launched this series. And one of the most important components to this, I'll add, we've got the crate engine that's very cost effective. We still have this big, expensive open engine on the other side. But the most important component was going to the tire manufacturers. And I have a dirt racing background that migrated to pavement racing as I went up. So the concept was a dirt style treaded tire with a pavement sidewall that would withstand the cornering, the G-forces in the corner, but a tire that you could use multiple races, multiple laps, would heat cycle better, and it just wouldn't wear out. So we took also that tire only allows so much horsepower to the ground. So the best drivers with a good feel of the car, it's about talent. And the drivers that had a lot of checkbook, you just didn't have this IndyCar style tire gluing the car to the track. So the talent comes forward. And so the biggest thing of this was the fact that when we started the pro late models years ago, we were really the only ones. And now this tire and 602 crate package, this combination is nationwide right now. So I think this will allow a lot of the talent to come forward. A whole nother topic on this is the problems we have. And I think some of the struggles that's happened even at the top of the sport with NASCAR is the fact that it is too much money first. It's way too much bring the money first, talent second. Whereas in the past, it was hire the fastest driver, the fastest gun, and you've got the owners had all the sponsors around them, and now the drivers bring a lot of money to the table. I've been really vocal about that on our MAVTV show and different opening monologues, things I do on TV, and and I'll never change my opinion. It needs to be talent first.
Well, we really appreciate you guys coming on. This has been super informative. I really hope our Nodak Speedway fans log in here, and I hope maybe one day one of our hotshot young drivers can make it over to Madera. But I'd like you to finish with just tell people how to get on to MAVTV and see your race. You know, just why don't you pitch a little bit to letting people know, like me, a sports fan, how to access it.
And then also a plug for Jacob too. Where would we find? I'm sure you probably got either a website or social media or whatever we can follow along on your journey too.
April 30th, your next race, right, Jake?
Yeah, that's the next one.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, April 30th is round 3 for Jacob in the Lunker Daddy Pro Late Model Series. And then round 3 that same evening, we shoot the 5150 Junior Late Model Series. As far as MAVTV, it's there's 90 plus distributors, DirecTV being the biggest one. It's 214 on direct. Our show is every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday night. We have 22 episodes a year, so you'll see the 22 episodes plus 22 reruns. So 1 week is a brand new episode, the next week is a rerun. Actually, Olga's California Dream 100, which the gentleman that helps me with that is in Idaho. There's another gentleman from Canada that helps with that event. So there's a lot of Canadian cars. It's the 4-cylinder national event we help them with. So it's 4-cylinder cars from all over the Midwest. They'll be on next Monday night, and that's our 22nd episode of last year's season. So MAVTV, 214 on direct. If you look different, depends on which region you're in. The best way is just go to mavtv.com, MAVTV.com. Very bottom of the homepage, it says Get MAVTV, and it'll show you where all the distributors are.
Hey, man, that was an informative interview. We love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate you guys having us on.
Thank you.
Well, we had another great episode. Had a good dive into racing and understanding how that all intricate works with Jacob and Kenny. It was awesome. Next week's going to be exciting. Spainer's going to hit the road. He's getting sick of all the snow and watch a little track and field out on the East Coast. And we also got a great interview with the big tandem from Grafton. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure you follow our TikTok, social media, all the platforms. Great episode here on the Spainer and Riggs podcast, brought to you by the Dakota Network.